Hey y'all, it's Kim again. So this is what did it call it? It was the counterintelligence. Oh, QBARC counterintelligence. Let me see. In like an interrogation report or something like that. But QBARC is one of the names, like a cryptonym that we've seen in the JFK files. If you've been following along, but anyway, definitions. Most of the intelligence terminology employed here, which may once have been ambiguous, have been clarified through usage or through QBARC instructions. For this reason, definitions have been omitted for such terms as burn notice, defector, escapee, and refugee. Other definitions have been included, despite a common agreement about meaning if the significance is shaded by the context, assessment, the analysis and synthesis of information, usually about a person or persons, for the purpose of appraisal. The assessment of individuals is based upon the compilation and use of psychological as well as biographical detail, bona fides, evidence, or reliable information about identity, personal, including intelligence, history, and intentions or good faith. Control, the capacity to generate, alter, or halt human behavior by implying, citing, or using physical or psychological means to ensure compliance with direction. The compliance may be voluntary or involuntary. Control of an interrogation can rarely be established without control of his environment. Counterintelligence interrogation. An interrogation, let's see, number 7, designed to obtain information about hostile clandestine activities and persons or groups engaged therein. QBARC CI or counterintelligence interrogations are designed almost invariably to yield information about foreign intelligence and security services or communist organizations because security is an element of counterintelligence. Interrogations conducted to obtain admissions of clandestine plans or activities directed against QBARC or PB Prime security or also CI interrogations. But unlike a police interrogation, the CI interrogations is not aimed at causing the interrogatee to incriminate himself as a means of bringing him to trial. Admissions of complicity or not to a CI service ends in themselves, but merely preludes to the acquisition of more information. Debriefing is obtaining information by questioning a controlled and witting source who is normally a willing one, eliciting, obtaining information without revealing intent or exceptional interest through a verbal or written exchange with the person who may be willing or unwilling to provide what is sought and who may or may not be controlled. Interrogation, obtaining information by direct questioning of a person or persons under conditions which are either partly or fully controlled by the questioner or are believed by those questioned to be subject to his control, because interviewing, debriefing, and eliciting are simpler methods of obtaining information from cooperative subjects. Interrogation is usually reserved for sources who are suspect, resistant, or both. Intelligence interview, obtaining information not customarily under control conditions by questioning a person who is aware of the nature and perhaps of the significance of his answers, but who is ordinarily unaware of the purposes and specific intelligence affiliations of the interviewer. Okay, legal and policy considerations. The legislation which founded QBARC specifically denied it any law enforcement or police powers, yet detention in a controlled environment and perhaps for a lengthy period is frequently essential to successful and counterintelligence interrogations of a recalcitrant source. This necessity obviously should be determined as early as possible. The legality of detaining and questioning a person and of the methods employed. Detention poses the most common of the legal problems. QBARC has no independent legal authority to detain anyone against his will. Uh, Something's been redacted here. It says the haste in which some Cubark interrogations have been conducted has not always been the product of impatience. Some security services, especially those of the Sino-Soviet bloc, may work at leisure, depending on time, as well as their own methods to melt recalcitrants. Cubark usually cannot, accordingly, unless, oh, excuse me, sorry, I messed that up. Cubark usually cannot. Okay, accordingly, unless it is considered that the prospective interrogatee is cooperative and will remain so indefinitely, the first step in planning an interrogation is to determine how long the source can be held. The choice of methods depends in part upon the answer to the question. And something's been redacted, okay? So the handling and questioning of defectors are subject to the provisions of Directive number 4. So it's related Chief Cubark directives principally. Okay, so they've redacted some of this stuff. Okay. Those concerned with the interrogation of defectors, escapees, refugees, or repatriates should know these references. The kinds of counterintelligence information to be sought in the CI interrogation are stated generally in Chief Cubark Directive and in greater detail in the book Dispatch. The interrogation of PB Prime citizens poses special problems. First, such interrogations should not be conducted for reasons lying outside the sphere of Cubark's responsibility. For example, something's been redacted, but should not normally become directly involved. Clandestine activity conducted abroad on behalf of a foreign power by a private PB Prime citizen does fall within Cubark's investigative and interrogative responsibilities. However, in any investigation, interrogation, or interview of a PB Prime citizen which is conducted abroad because it is known or suspected that he is engaged in clandestine activities directed against PB Prime security interests requires the prior and personal approval of Chief Q Desk or of his deputy. Since 4th of October 1961, extraterritorial application has been given to the Espionage Act, making it henceforth possible to prosecute in the federal courts any prime or PB Prime citizen who violates the statutes of this act in foreign countries. OD Envy has requested that it be informed in advance, if time permits, if any investigative steps are undertaken in these cases. Since Cubark employees cannot be witnesses in court, each investigation must be conducted in such a manner that evidence obtained may be properly introduced if the case comes to trial. Something stays policy and procedures for the conduct of investigations of PB Prime citizens abroad. Interrogations conducted under compulsion or duress are especially likely to involve illegality and to entail damaging consequences for Cubark. Therefore, prior headquarters approval at the QDOV level must be obtained for the interrogation of any source against his will and under any of the following circumstances. If bodily harm is to be inflicted, if medical, chemical, or electrical methods or materials are to be used to induce acquiescence. 3 is not there. The CI interrogator dealing with the uncooperative interrogatee who has been well briefed by a hostile service on the legal restrictions under which OD Yoke services operate must expect some effective delaying tactics. The interrogatee has been told that Cubark will not hold him long, that he need only resist for a while. Nikolai Kolkloff, something like that, for example, reported that before he left for Frankfurt in Maine on his, for Frankfurt am Maine on his assassination mission. I don't know what that means. The following thoughts coursed through his head. If I should get into the hands of Western authorities, I can become reticent, silent, and deny my voluntary visit to Okhalovich. I know I will not be tortured, and that under the procedures of Western law, I can conduct myself bodily. The footnote numerals in this text are keyed to the numbered bibliography at the end. The interrogator who encounters expert resistance should not grow flurried and pressed. If he does, he is likelier to commit illegal acts, which the source can later use against him. Remember that time is on his side. The interrogator should arrange to get as much of it as he needs. Okay. So I'm going to stop it here. I don't, I just want to keep going and going, just shorten this video up. But anyway, um, this kind of goes along with the Senate torture report. So that's why I'm kind of going through this because it's just interesting, all the stuff that you can go down so many different rabbit holes when you find out information. So anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye. Hello. Is it gonna stop? Sorry. It's causing me troubles.